Recently, the IdentityV community has been in a complete uproar about the next upcoming hunter, Cueist. There's frankly a lot of things that people dislike about him, but today I want to focus on his backstory. The majority of the community claims that the backstory is muddy, convoluted, and generally just doesn't make sense, and if you ask me, I would agree. Now, I'm personally really excited for Cueist, and honestly, I have high hopes specifically for gameplay because we all know the design isn't paying the bills. Cueist releases with the third essence of the current season, dropping on August 28th, and like I said, his lore is not the greatest. So, I'm taking it upon myself to look at his lore so far and rewrite it because I think I could easily do better. I want to keep as much of his original concept the same, so I won't be changing that up much, but there are very much issues. Before we actually talk about them, we need to know what his story is to know what's bad about it. So let's do a little bit of reading. If you already know his story and want to skip this reading, skip to the timestamp on screen. No one truly knows where Marcus came from. He grew up on the fringes of society, surviving in lawless lands and brutal arenas where only the victors earned their next meal. Despite the harshness of his world, Marcus managed to endure and even showed a rare kindness, sometimes sharing a scrap of food with the defeated on the verge of death. By chance, Marcus's life took a turn when a nobleman discovered him and introduced him to billiards, a popular English pastime of the time. Marcus's natural talent quickly shone through. He defeated every challenger and soon became one of the 4 rising stars of the billiard hall, drawing crowds and earning the establishment a small fortune. Though he was surrounded by admirers, most were insincere, either jealous rivals waiting for his downfall or fawning opportunists. Yet, because of his absolute dominance, they could only seethe with resentment. Only one spectator took a genuine interest in Marcus. This quiet observer meticulously recorded Marcus's shots, using them to refine his own theories in physics. Unbeknownst to Marcus, this man was actually his estranged father. In the father's mind and on his scattered notes, another child was taking shape, one born not of flesh, but of thought. Maxwell's demon. In the latter half of the 19th century, physics was flourishing, but the second law of thermodynamics seemed to doom the dream of a perpetual motion machine. Scientists searched for exceptions, but found none, until Maxwell's demon appeared. Conceived by the scientist Whittaker, the demon was imagined as a tiny being inside a transparent box, controlling a door between hot and cold chambers and sorting particles to create a temperature difference. Once his idea was complete, Whittaker ended his countryside retreat and returned to university, where he published his paper on Maxwell's demon. He didn't know that Marcus had just been born. The theory caused a sensation, like a fairy tale that opened up new possibilities for the universe. If the demon truly existed, perhaps perpetual motion was possible, and the universe's march toward entropy could be reversed. Like Marcus's dominance in the billiard hall, Maxwell's demon became a celebrated figure in the world of physics, controlling particles, dictating rules, and enjoying the admiration of many. Its only diversions were watching its father from outside the box and observing Marcus. But times change. English billiards fell out of favor, replaced by snooker, and Marcus, a prodigy of the old game, struggled to adapt. As rivals seized their chance to strike back, disaster struck. The billiard hall collapsed in a mysterious accident, leaving Marcus gravely injured and unconscious. Clutched in his hand were the physics notes that chronicled every shot he'd ever played. Finding the author of these notes became his last hope. Meanwhile, cracks appeared in the theory of Maxwell's demon. External forces shattered the transparent box, and the once controlled particles burst free, rebelling against their master. What was once hailed as a scientific marvel was now dismissed as pseudoscience, locked away in darkness. The demon, furious and unwilling to accept defeat, pounded on the broken walls of its prison, guiding its father back to the ruins of the billiard hall, back to Marcus's resting place. There, the father recognized the parallels between himself and the demon. Perhaps the theory could be realized in another form. Perhaps he could become the demon. After many trials, and with his father's help, Marcus finally encountered Maxwell's demon face to face. Their shared desire for victory overcame any resistance, and they fused into one being, the very demon from the research notes. When Marcus awoke, transformed, he had only one urge: to shatter every sphere around him. Okay, so from that we have frankly a lot to point out. I think we should section the story into a few parts first. We have part 1 that talks more about Marcus's story, part 2 that introduces his parallel, Maxwell's demon, and part 3, which kind of ties them together. Now we can start identifying what specifically is wrong. One of the things the community is memeing the most right now is the entire way that billiards has been implemented into his story. There's no real interesting plot point as to why he's playing billiards, just that he's good at it and it was a popular form of entertainment. He clearly had a rough personal upbringing before being introduced to the game, as the background story mentions, so the only real incentive for him to be good at this game is his own self-preservation. But it's difficult for that that to be a satisfying enough reason because we aren't given enough of a story prior to him playing billiards to form an attachment to the character. The way this is constructed makes it seem like NetEase made the character design before they made the lore. It's like they had the design of a hunter that plays billiards, and when they went to make the lore, they realized they didn't actually have a proper plot point connecting the existing lore they had, aka the entire plot regarding Maxwell's demon with billiards. So they just decided to throw it in where they thought it would make most sense. It's better than nothing, but it's not satisfying. Even as someone who likes the character and is really excited for his release, it's not a satisfying decision to make with his lore. So, when rewriting, one of the things I'll be doing is twisting billiards as a plot point. Because I want to keep the original concept as much as possible, I won't be removing it at all, but simply adding and changing certain events or details surrounding it so that hopefully it's a more interesting story to follow. Alright, moving on to part 2 of this story, we have Maxwell's demon. To my understanding, this entire theory is essentially the idea that there is a hypothetical being that can detect the differences for motion and temperature of individual molecules and sort them as a result. This alone is a cool concept, but it doesn't end up tying into Marcus much at all, save for the idea that in the lore, both Marcus and this demon are stubborn and don't want to accept defeat, leading them to merge. So, yeah, I think I could do better. First off, I think tying the in-universe version of Maxwell's demon to the cat cult would be a more interesting take on the story, since the Eye of Darkness revived both Anne and Alva, and the scene of Marcus and Maxwell's demon merging could also be seen as some sort of revival. The other section of part 2 that really messes with me is the shift between billiards and snooker and the subsequent event that happens because of it. In the story, Marcus gets dethroned and forgotten about because snooker, another version of pool, ends up becoming more popular and he for some unexplained reason is unable to adapt. Through the glimpses we have in his upbringing, we knew that he grew up in the fringes of society and managed to endure the harshness of the world, but as soon as a new variation of pool that could easily be learned by a professional player like himself, he ends up getting easily dethroned because he somehow can't understand it? I think not. This plot point is important, but the way it's told and portrayed is lazy and makes no sense. The reason why it's needed though is because it reinforces that connection between Marcus and Maxwell's demon, since it too ends up falling out of relevancy. The issue is, the demon in the box doesn't get forgotten because a new hypothetical theory ends up taking the spotlight, like how snooker takes over billiards, but instead, the box breaks, and the demon essentially stops doing its theorized job, leading the entire theory to be dismissed. Going back to Marcus, we learn that only after he ends up not being able to adapt to the change between billiards and snooker, a terrible accident happens. The billiard hall collapses, leaving Marcus injured and unconscious. It's implied that his own rivals were what caused the disaster to happen, which is fine. In fact, this entire incident is good. I wouldn't remove it at all, but I would change when it happens and the implications of it. So, after analyzing part 2, I'll be tying in the cat cult and the Eye of Darkness more directly into the storyline, as well as making the parallels between Marcus and the demon a bit clearer while making them a lot more satisfying from a story standpoint. Lastly, we have part 3, where we learn that Maxwell's demon is dismissed as a theory. It rebels and guides its father back to Marcus, where the two inevitably merge and seek revenge. The slices of bread to this section aren't bad, it's what's inside the sandwich that's the problem. The details such as this demon, who was hypothetical, revealing itself to exist, and ending up leading its father, which before we even continue, I need to address this. I can't tell in this story if Marcus's father, the scientist who created Maxwell's demon, and this character ominously labeled as quote-unquote father are one and the same. It's very clearly insinuated, but let's just call it how it is, and if this isn't the intended interpretation of the story, it is now. Marcus's estranged father is named Whitaker. In addition to being Marcus's father, he is the father of the Maxwell's demon theory, leading him to also be the technical demon's father as well. Okay, just wanted to set that straight. Back to where we were. The demon leads Whitaker back to Marcus, where he pieces together that Marcus and the demon are actually quite similar, thus leading him to crystal gem style fuse the two together. This one is weird, for 2 reasons. Why and how could the demon be the one to lead Whitaker back to the billiard hall? Yes, it's supposed to be an intelligent being, but it's also clearly not corporeal. This thing has no form. If it did, the entire theory that there's this hypothetical demon controlling the flow of particles wouldn't be a theory because everyone would be able to see the demon that's hypothesized to be there. And secondly, there's no elaboration on what Whitaker needed to do to fuse Marcus and the demon or how he even did it. The only real visual we have is the fusion of Marcus's physical body with the quote-unquote soul of what he looks like transformed. This could be viewed as what the demon looks like, showing how they merge together visually, but we still don't know what, why, or how that happens. So with part 3, we'll need to firstly make sure it's clear that Whitaker is the father to both Marcus and the demon. I'll also be providing a little bit of a better explanation as to how Whitaker finds Marcus, and detailing how Marcus and the demon actually end up merging. With that lengthy analysis out of the way, let's get into what you all really came here for. I want to preface this with, as much as I wanted to do this and enjoyed analyzing the existing lore, I am by no means an incredible writer. Obviously, I'll try my best to keep this as cohesive and generally better than what we have already, but I cannot make any promises. Some things will stay the same, a lot of things will be different, and I'll try to keep the background story a similar length to the existing one. Without further ado, this is Cueist's background story, Reimagined. Marcus's origins had always been a mystery. He was a man almost completely shrouded in secrecy. He valued his personal life, and his past was a secret he kept close to his chest. According to rumors, though, he didn't have the most favorable upbringing. Competition riddled his earlier years. Life seemed to be a constant battle between others. Only the victors were the ones truly able to thrive. There was no other option. But the past was the past, and the tracks of Marcus's life were quickly redirected when he encountered a wealthy-looking nobleman who invited him to play a game of billiards, promising him both a place of rest and to even earn money. Over time, Marcus's infamy as the king of the billiard hall grew. He was undefeated, his cue ball and cue stick a signature of the billiard hall, being proudly displayed below a portrait of the prodigy. To the naked eye, it seemed like his talents were a natural gift, a knowledge and understanding of geometry intrinsic to his very being. He had his tricks, though. His upbringing taught him the importance of winning, at whatever the cost. During the late nights in the hall, and under the guise of his position in the hall, Marcus tinkered with the billiard equipment, sabotaging the Cueist sticks by rounding out the tips slightly, replacing the stereotypical solid balls with hollow ones. It was true he was skilled in the game, but his actions gave him an upper hand. His constant victory led to forming rivalries, some known to him. Others kept their secret distaste towards Marcus to themselves, silently hoping for his downfall. Out of all of the regular onlookers, he did have some admirers. One in particular, Professor Whitaker, marveled at Marcus's understanding of the game, recording every shot Marcus made, using them to hone his own theories. Marcus never paid much attention to the man. He figured due to his habits of scribbling away on a notepad, he never was interested enough. Little did he know, though, Professor Whitaker had his own secrets. The scientist was Marcus's estranged father, whisked away from childhood due to his obsession with his theories. Additionally, the longer Whitaker watched Marcus play, the more these theories came to life. Through studying Marcus's display of physics, Whitaker developed his most coveted child yet, Maxwell's demon. Much like Marcus's upbringing, this hypothesized demon Whitaker created skyrocketed in popularity inside the physics world. It was an intriguing theory, one built of hypotheticals and imagination. Through Whitaker's studies and theories, he told the world of a demon, impossible to perceive through the naked eye, yet, at the time, impossible to dismiss. It was described as a hyper-intelligent being that occupied a small transparent box split into two sides. The demon controlled a door inside the box, dictating the difference in temperature between the two sides, and sorting the different particles inside to create the temperature difference. Whitaker described this demon as a being who can play a game of skill with the molecules. After some time in university, Whitaker created and published his official paper on Maxwell's demon. The theory promised the potential that if this demon Whitaker hypothesized truly does exist, the fundamental understanding of thermodynamics would be shattered. Perpetual motion could be fully realized, and entropy could be reversed. The very idea of disorder completely shattered. Of course, Whitaker never could completely prove this demon truly existed. The only reason why the theory was taken seriously in the first place was because no one could disprove it right off the bat. It received validity even in its ridiculousness. The billiard hall followed a similar approach. Marcus's streak of countless wins became almost ridiculous, impossible even. Yet business was booming, and most turned a blind eye. Most. After a particularly odd tournament, a group of rivals started getting suspicious of Marcus. One had seen his cue ball move differently from his opponents, erratically, clearly tampered with. The group of rivals snuck into the hall late into the night and inspected the billiard equipment, finding the sabotaged cue sticks and hollow balls. Curiously, they found Marcus's signature equipment untouched and in pristine condition. They had found their culprit. So they devised a foolproof plan. If Marcus intended to win at all costs, they intended to make him lose at all costs. During a break in the league, the billiard hall, famous for its star players, unexplainably collapsed. Officials called it a tragic accident due to the natural decay of the building, and buried beneath the rubble lay the once undefeated champion. Similarly to Marcus, Whitaker's beloved demon in the box became reckless. The professor swore to hearing voices in his lab. He thought the years of obsessing over theories and formulas might have finally caught up to him. But one day, the box containing the demon inexplicably shattered. The particles once contained and harnessed flew free, lost to a suspected laboratory safety violation. Whitaker's scientific marvel was dismissed and deemed false, quickly forgotten as people woke up to its fantasy in light of its destruction. The demon inside, however, was freed, and the voices Whitaker heard seemed clearer and less distant. The voices led him away from his studies, away from his broken theories, and back to where they were first formed, where the concept of the demon's very existence was realized, to the ruins of the billiard hall. Whitaker found Marcus in the rubble, his body and legacy destroyed. The voices whispered to Whitaker as he looked down at his son's seemingly lifeless body. They told him what Marcus did, why his own theory of the demon in the box failed. The countless shots Whitaker had recorded were all tampered with. Each shot was but a deviation from reality, and in Whitaker's pursuit to reverse entropy, he only ended up creating a being designed to do the opposite. In the grief of his son's death and the rebellion of his own creation, he managed to understand one thing. The demon he created was, in actuality, created from the mind of his son, a hyper-intelligent being that had the same ideology as his own child, to win no matter the cost. With this revelation, Whitaker took his son back to his laboratory, to the scene of where the demon's box had broken. Whitaker believed in lies and fantasies before. It was the foundation of his thought experiment, and while the world had forgotten it, something hadn't. Something had created the demon out of the fantasy. Perhaps that same something could recreate his son, even when the world had forgotten about him. Marcus awoke again with a sharp gasp, laying on something cold. It didn't matter what it was to him. The air was stagnant and almost frigid. He heard nothing in this space, and when he opened his eyes, it was dark. Managing to sit up, he watched as in front of him a figure appeared in the darkness. It was noticeably small and almost completely black. After a few moments, he felt heaviness in his head, his heart rate beginning to race, a high-pitched ringing sounding in his ears. He watched the figure as his eyelids grew heavy, and just before they closed, he watched the figure's own eyes open, gold and distinctively cat-like. In reality, Whitaker watched as above Marcus's body a spiral of chaotic, unpredictable, and uncontrolled energy started to form. The amalgamation of energy twisted and multiplied until it started to take form. It looked very similar to the body laid underneath it. Whitaker watched in awe as the new body hovering in the air and his own son began to merge. Marcus's physical body jolted and twitched with life, and as he opened his eyes, given a second lease on life, he had only one urge. I have got to play some billiards. Well, that about does it. Sorry if the ending seems a bit rushed. As I was writing it, my heart decided to do things that forced me to go lay down, seek affection from the Pookie, and also Google, hey, what does this mean? If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to my channel. This is vastly different from the content I usually make, but I had a lot of fun with both analyzing Cueist lore and also trying to create something I personally find more satisfying. Let me know in the comments if you liked my reimagining of his background story, and if you didn't, lie to me and say you did. Thanks for watching this video, it means a lot, and I will see you all in the next one.